All right, we're starting this module with a math quiz. You're probably like, wait a minute, I was told there would be no math, but there's math. So let's get started. So this particular math quiz is admittedly not your normal math quiz. Here's the question. Here's the math problem. Low self-efficacy plus maladaptive perfectionism and a smidge of neuroticism. Low self-efficacy, one's belief in one's ability to accomplish goals, plus a perfectionism that gets in the way of leading a successful and happy life, and then feelings of anxiety, worry, fear, anger, frustration, envy, jealousy, guilt, depressed mood, and loneliness. Add all that together. What is that audience? That basically is something called imposter syndrome. And you might have heard of imposter syndrome. I quite honestly believe that most of my students, most of us, not just students, most of all of us in the world have some level of imposter syndrome, some level of inadequacies. Imposter syndrome, if you don't know, there are a number of signs to it. And if you have any of these types of signs, then you, along with the rest of us, welcome to the club, have imposter syndrome. If you sort of thinking you're a fake and you're going to be found out, if you just lucked out when something really worked out well, when you truly showed your true colors and your abilities, you thought, oh, hey, I lucked out. If I can't do it, anyone can. I had a lot of help. That's why I succeeded at that. I had connections. You're looking for these ways to basically deflect any kind of praise that you might be worthy of because these other things happen that you think are really the real reason why you did well at something. So that's kind of, if you think of it that way, if we want to think of this in graphic terms, and I'm a designer, I love graphics like that, it's kind of your mean brain saying that other people's knowledge and skills here are a lot more than my little bit of knowledge and skills that I have. When in actuality, all of us are walking around with relatively equal Venn diagrams, relatively equal circles, that our knowledge and skills match the other knowledge and skills of someone else. When the right two people or five people get together and create something together, that's relatively equal. It's not just you in this tiny bubble, and you kind of tend to diminish your abilities. So feelings of inadequacy that persist despite evident success, internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud that tends to kind of seep into your brain. And, it should be really named self-underappreciation syndrome. But I want to add here that this is part of my background. As you can tell from the models behind me, I'm a theater person. And so you can't get away from a class like mine without hearing a William Shakespeare quote. But I love this one. Our doubts are traitors and make us lose the good we oft might win by fearing to attempt. So it's that fear that keeps us from really attempting anything sometimes because we feel like we're imposters. So as we kind of go through life, we might feel this way when it comes to imposter syndrome. We might feel that we have the implicit beliefs about ourselves that shape the way we perceive, react, and respond to failure. Failure is a big part of that. I'll get to that in a second. But imposter syndrome also has prevalence in some certain portions of the population, particularly doctors. 75% of all doctors have imposter syndrome. That's not something you want in a doctor. Also, a 2-to-1 ratio female to male. I think more often than not, females feel inadequate, feel that their successes are not warranted, and that type of thing. But let's move on. I mean, here's kind of a funny Venn diagram. While we're in the Venn diagram world, here's another one. We all at some point feel like imposters, right? But let me share some examples here. First of all, Maya Angelou, acclaimed author, she wrote, I have written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find out now. I've run a game on everybody and they're going to find me out, right? There she has self-underappreciation. She's Maya freaking Angelou. That's not her official middle name, but she's Maya Angelou, right? And someone we all look up to, someone who perhaps we're fans of her writing. Even she feels, as quoted here, like she might be an imposter. But like I said before, failure can be a big deal, and I'm a big fan of Brene Brown. I highly recommend some of the books she's written. I want to share a quick clip of her speaking at a TED conference about this very thing.
And I had to write down the name of this TED fellow so I didn't mess it up here. Mishkin Ingawale. I hope I did right by you. I saw the TED Fellows my first day here, and he got up and he explained how he was driven to create some technology to help test for anemia because people were dying unnecessarily. And he said, I saw this need, so you know what I did? I made it. And everybody just burst into applause, and they were like, yes! And he said, and it didn't work. And then I made it 32 more times. And then it worked. You know what the big secret about TED is? I can't wait to tell people this. I guess I'm doing it right now. This is like the failure conference. No, it is. You know why this place is amazing? Because very few people here are afraid to fail. And no one that gets on the stage so far that I've seen has not failed. I have failed miserably, many times. I don't think the world understands that because of shame. There's a great quote that saved me this past year by Theodore Roosevelt. A lot of people refer to it as the man in the arena quote. And it goes like this: "It is not the critic who counts. It is not the man who sits and points out how the doer of deeds could have done things better and how he falls and stumbles. The credit goes to the man in the arena, whose face is marred with dust and blood and sweat. But when he's in the arena, at best, he wins, and at worst, he loses. But when he fails, when he loses, he does so daring greatly." And that's what this conference to me is about. That's what life is about daring greatly, about being in the arena. When you walk up to that arena and you put your hand on the door and you think, "I'm going in and I'm going to try this," shame is the gremlin who says, "You're not good enough. You never finished that MBA. Your wife left you. I know your dad really wasn't in Luxembourg, he was in Sing Sing. I know there's things that happened to you growing up. I know you don't think that you're pretty enough or smart enough or talented enough or powerful enough. I know your dad never paid attention even when you made CFO." Shame is that thing. And then if we can quiet it down and walk in and say, "I'm going to do this," we look up and the critic that we see pointing and laughing 99% of the time is who? Us. Shame drives two big tapes: never good enough, and if you can talk it out of that one, who do you think you are?
All right, very inspiring. So as we talk about daring greatly and being able to dare greatly, what keeps us from daring greatly are the 5 types of imposter syndrome. And I'm going to go through these. You don't have to take all these down here. I'm going to go through these one by one, all right? 5 types of imposter syndrome. Try these on, almost like a jacket. Try these on and see if they fit perhaps who you are. They may not, but see if they do. All right, the first one is the perfectionist. Set excessively high goals for yourself, no matter the cost to your mental health, and then failing leads to self-doubt. So you set these high goals and you obviously fail at them because they're too high. And then that sort of seeps in as a self-doubt. That's one. Number 2, the superhero. You're convinced you're a phony, leads you to work up to sort of a harder to measure up to others, and it tends to lead to workload, overload, excuse me, and over addiction to work. It's not good. It's not good. So that's the superhero imposter syndrome flavor. The natural genius, you judge your competence based on ease and speed as opposed to effort. More time means that you're failing at this. This should come easier to me, and it's not. I'm trying something entirely new, and you're not giving yourself the grace to take time to do it. Another one, the soloist, that's simply asking for help from anyone. Could be a mentor, could be a parent, proves that you're not worthy. That leads to shame. And then last but not least, the expert. You never feel very good, despite your very knowledgeable skills. You never know enough, so you feel exposed. You feel somehow that you're not an expert, and therefore you're exposed. So anyway, that's it for those imposter syndromes. But let's get to the meat. Let's talk about how we get past imposter syndromes. All right. Here's a series of ways. One is just get social. Just hang out, talk to people about the struggles they might be having. Have them become part of your group where you can celebrate each other's successes. So get social. Just get together with folks, and as you hear other students talk about their imposter syndrome types, or at least alluding to them, you'll feel a little less alone. Secondly, show yourself what you can already do. And I have a couple of three different ways to share with that. First of all, record your successes. I have a friend who actually records her successes every day. She's like, I got up, I brushed my teeth, those kinds of things. And if she checks them all off in a day, she might treat herself to something at the end of the day. But record your successes. Make sure that you write them down, put them on your website, whatever it might be. So record your successes. Secondly, learn from others that you admire. There are people like Maya Angelou, for example, who you might admire. Make sure you learn from them. Learn from as much as their successes, learn from their failures. And there are many. Grab some cheerleaders. As I said about getting social, you'll find friends who will be like, you did fine. A C minus is just fine. All you need to do is pass the class. They will help you get past things as cheerleaders. The next one, and then again, there's some sub interest here. It's also making sure you kind of call out some of your imposter syndrome types. Turn yourself into a coach, basically coaching your inner critic. Here's some ways to do that. Label the anxieties as they happen. If they happen, you might say, hey, that's my imposter syndrome popping up again. I know what that looks like. I know what that smells like. I know what that is. And just label it. Label it to start yourself down this journey of labeling it. And then figure out the root causes of that. Does this happen in a specific exchange with a specific person or a specific class? Find out the root causes and see what you can do about those. And then have some self-compassion. Again, like just give yourself a break and say, hey, I did the best I could. That's the best I could be expected of me. There's this wonderful doctor named Dr. Amy Cuddy, who I love this quote, the more we communicate about our fears and anxieties and the smarter we are about how they operate, the easier they'll be to shrug off the next time they pop up. And so you think of it, as she likes to recommend, as a game of whack-a-mole. That's the inner critic sort of popping up and you need to whack them down. So if you hear yourself saying, I'm not good enough, I'm not rich enough, pretty enough, smart enough, or capable, or anything along those lines, it's a game of whack-a-mole. So as I've said to my students many, many times, it's not how intelligent are you, it's how are you intelligent? How are you specifically intelligent? What do you bring to the table? And how can your diversity in your knowledge be your strength? That's the key. That's the key. All right. So as we kind of wrap up, I just want to say, you got this. Believe in yourself. Believe in what you can do. And that's the key to getting past imposter syndrome.